this is an hybrid panel because we have one of the panelists with us, is Katie Lear, is the regional crew management partner at V.ships. So he has been head of crewing for 15 years at least, handling teams in offshore and shipping sectors across Europe, America, Middle East, West Africa, and always improving quality and efficiency of crewing operations. We also, one of our trustees in the board of trustees is working with V.ships, and we take this opportunity to thank V.ships for also sponsoring this World Congress. On Zoom we will have Maria Iris Van Glad, who is the president of Dole Seafront Crewing in Manila. She is an attorney specialized in environmental law with demonstrated experience in working in the maritime industry. And I think that for practical reasons, we will invite Iris to be the first to speak on Zoom, so we can move in front and we can hear it. So Iris, thank you for joining us, and you have the floor.
Hi, good evening to us, and good morning to you in Glasgow. So I'm going to present a bit about what we went through in the last couple of years through COVID, and how the Philippine seafaring industry has had the welfare of the Philippine seafarers at foremost. So I'll go through it, and if you have questions, just feel free to interrupt at any given time. So my name is Iris Bagilat. I'm the president of Dole Seafront Crewing Manila. I'm also the chairperson of ALMA Maritime Group, which is an association of manning agencies, where collectively we deploy about 174,000 Filipino seafarers at a given time. So my talk is about the challenges of the maritime industry in enhancing the welfare of Filipino seafarers. So first, I'd like to thank Stella for all the work that you have done in giving refuge to our Filipino seafarers while they face their tour of duty. And as always, when they are on board or when they go off on maybe some shore leave, the first thing that they really look for is the Stella Maris homes, the houses, the mission houses, as it is a sense of comfort for them that they have something familiar while they are out in another country. So I take this opportunity to thank all of you for your generosity, for your kindness, for your sense of mission in giving solace to our seafarers. So I'll walk you through the presentation. It's through the pandemic. I'll explain a bit. So it was around January 26 when we started in 2020, when we started to hear about we received an internal advisory about this virus that has hit Wuhan city. We've circulated this advisory, but at that stage it wasn't in the foremost of the minds even of different governments. So we were in normal operations from January 26, and then only in March 13th did the Philippine government react, and we had our partial lockdown from 15th of March to 14th of April in 2020. So we were on a state of calamity for 6 months. My staff and I had to go on a work from home arrangement. And then we started to feel the pain because our seafarers were stranded. Those who signed off and arrived in Manila could no longer go home as strict lockdown measures were implemented, and seafarers who were already about to go on board were stranded as well and were not allowed to and who did not have the available flights to go out and join the ships. So around April 27th, thereabouts, I started I and some group of leaders also of other companies, including Marlin Navigation, Seaboard, Hartman, Blue Ocean, even Maersk is part of this, OSM, sorry. We started the call of the international to really focus on, in ensuring that our seafarers are called key workers in the Philippines. So about April, we had our online Zoom meeting with the Maritime Industry Authority of the Philippines, and with the administrator appealing to him to make sure that the seafarers are now categorized as key workers. So this was about April 2020. We also raised in a letter several issues to him, including the issue of repatriation, seeking help from our government agencies to financially shoulder all expenses while our seafarers are on quarantine, and also to make sure that the seafarers are given some form of government subsidy while they're waiting for their assignments. And then included of which is our appeal to start mercy flights, meaning these are government-paid airline flights in the Philippines, to start moving the stranded seafarers from Metro Manila and to other places and send them home. Next slide. So that has started about April, and we continued the push, and we again started to reinforce our call for $200 cash assistance to seafarers under the Department of Labor. And fortunately, many shipowner associations supported this call and our appeal to government. And this included already also, thankfully, Stella was one of those who supported our appeal to government, including the different chambers of commerce and ITF-AMSU, which is a union. And then thereabouts, also in April, we started to put together about 50 manning agencies. It started as a Viber group chat. We called it Association of Licensed Manning Agencies, or the Alma Maritime Group. At that time, we were just 50 companies with 150,000 Filipino seafarers on board. We formed ourselves a group because we were really very lost, and we had no clue what to do around that time. And then about 11, we have always been going to media, to government, on a full-on campaign. Aside from running our own independent companies and taking care of our own operations, we felt the need to really bond together as a group and collectively push forward the needs of the industry, because only together, not just the manning agencies, but also the unions plus the welfare societies for seafarers, did we have any chance of being heard in taking care of our seafarers. Then we also sought for, at that time, we also had issues where the COVID testing of returning seafarers were not being paid for by government, and then quarantine were not being paid for as well. So that we collectively pushed for. This was around May. And then thankfully around May 12th of 2020, sorry, that is a typo, the Philippine government declared the seafarers as key workers. Next slide. So still in May, we continue the push, the lobby. We ensured that we have unhampered transit of seafarers across areas under community quarantine. We also sought for the embassies to cater for online visas. And we have started the push to remove passenger caps in our airports, in our airlines entering into the Philippines, because that has become really problematic for crew on board who were already experiencing lengthened contracts because they could not disembark. So their fatigue and exhaustion was really felt all across the fleet. Then internally in Dule, around that time as well, we started the Break the Silence campaign, which is a mental health helpline to address the mental issues of our crew on board. We started as well our engagement to the seafarers and shore-based members. So even when we are in the middle of lockdown, we have a venue by which we tell their stories to demonstrate their individual, the seafarers of Dule are not just numbers, but they are human beings, they are body and soul, and that it is where we amplify their hopes, their dreams, their struggles, their challenges, their victories, written by their crew and about their families as well. So we call it the We Are Seafront campaign. And we had quite a bit of attraction there. We had a lot of stories shared also by our seafarers in that venue. Around the same time, thankfully with the association, we have started to be involved in a one-stop shop for the management of returning seafarer Filipinos, so that government has someone in the maritime sector in seafaring that actually tells them how a certain policy would impact our industry. And at the same time also in Dule, we started our project after, where we asked children of our employees to give, to draw, make cards also to console the COVID-19 patients who were stuck in hospitals in May of 2020. I remember that was, I think, the Alpha variant, which is a bit more strong and more, it was more risky. So we had our own little thing where we pass on hope to those who are in hospitals. And then, next slide. Then the company, the Dule Group, we thought that probably there is really no way around the limits of flights coming in and out of the Philippines. So we had our project in the company to charter flights from Hamburg to Manila, then Manila to Hamburg. The first one was about June 12th. So we managed to bring about 230 Filipino crew, not just our own crew, but also crew of other ship owners. And we had our first repatriation, also our first time that we were able in the Philippines to expatriate joiners through chartered flight. So we were covered a bit by media, TV, and print, because it was important, we feel, that the public and government would understand the difficulties being faced by this particular sector, which is normally unheard of and quietly just in the corner. So we felt that it is important to raise awareness. So, and then the second time, even the second charter, which was about June 28, 2020, about 2 weeks later, we were able to bring home an equal number of seafarers, about 236 seafarers, and then fly out 170 seafarers back to to Hamburg, where they would join the different ships. In the second flight, one of those that we repatriated was even the German ambassador to the Philippines. She could not enter Manila because of the lack of flights, so she was one of the passengers on the flight coming back. And then we also have the Green Day. Thankfully, around June, the Philippine government opened the Philippines as a Green Day for seafarers, not just for Filipinos. So that means that ships could come in the Philippines and do the crew changes, not just for all seafarers, foreign and Filipino. And that started a series of calls, deviations from into the Philippines, wherever they are sailing the ships. And then around September, we started to formally incorporate the Manning Association called ALMA. And in October, the Association of ALMA, we had our first Red Cross agreement with Red Cross on the PCR testing. Around the time, the testing cost for swabbing or RT-PCR was ridiculously onerous. For us to get results within 24 hours or 12 hours in order to match also the joining of the crew, we had to spend about $300 to $400 per test. So the agreement with Red Cross was very much welcomed by the industry. And then around October, we also started, myself, as Dule, personally, as part of the core group to launch the testing and quarantine facilities of IMEC and ITF. If you notice, during the pandemic and starting around March, I started to wear different hats. And sometimes it's ALMA, sometimes it's Dule, sometimes it's IMEC, and all really just to push for the welfare of the Filipino seafarers who were stuck on board, who were able to get home, and who needed to, and for those who are home and needed to sail because they have no jobs and are unable to feed their families. So we started the IMEC ITF launch testing and quarantine facilities. I was part of that core group, and in that core group, we managed to have approvals by the Maritime Port, the MPA of Singapore, to accept the quarantine facility that we set up here in Manila, to approve our protocols, and accept these joiners into Singapore. That was a huge deal because only Singapore was the available country to undertake crew changes around that time. And it was very difficult to go through the protocols of Singapore. For how the government of Singapore give accreditation to this facility was really a huge breakthrough for all of us here in the Philippines. And of course for the world, because the global shipping was involved as well. And then around January 6, 2021, the ALMA Maritime Group we had our first oath taking as officers of the association. And on the same day, I had a meeting with the administrator of Marina and started to convince him that the next thing that we need to really focus on is the vaccination of our Filipino crew. I explained that given that we're a third world country, we think that it would be very difficult to vaccinate our seafarers and have no access for them, which would consequently lead to absence of slots because they will not be allowed to join ships if they are not vaccinated. So remember, this is around January 6, 2021. At that time, the government released a priority list of workforce for the vaccination program, for the national vaccination program. And the seafarers were actually number 10 in the list. And only those with comorbidity or senior citizens were considered as number 1 on the list. Around February, the inoculation of the A1 category, including those in food, in the medical frontliners and in key industries started. So Alma Maritime Group, our association, started to petition the vaccination of priority for seafarers. So this was around February 15th when we started to write. And thankfully also we were supported by partners such as the IPF Union, Philippine Union called AMUSU. We also have UFS and Mateo and Stella who pushed and supported formally the petition. Then we had March, if you see in the bottom part of the presentation, we have the Palm Sunday Mass for our crew. So, and Stella Father Paulo, said the Mass. It was streamed to the different ships that are on board, so that the seafarers are aware that there was masses, and they just went online to join us on the streamed masses. So those who are on shore, the families, and those on board. So the photos there are actually of our seafarers in the different ships, and so our collaboration with Stella is not just in advocacy, pushing government and all these things, but especially in the welfare of in the spiritual welfare of our group, which is very more important, I find. And then around April and May, inoculation of our seafarers to A2, A3 category. And around the same time, our seafarers were actually moved up in rank. Now they are number 4 in category. So that is from number 10 to number 4 about April 2021. Then in May, after several constant pushes, you see there a lot of Zoom. These are actually Zoom online meetings or online BGTV presentations before government or before different social media and mainstream media, just to rally the fact that we needed to vaccinate our Filipino seafarers. So successfully around May, our Filipino seafarers now were moved up to number 1, A1 category, and specifically for those that would be deployed in the next 3 months. It took a bit of time. So if you notice, we started the conversation with Marina in January, and we gained foothold in May. Then in June, Marina rolled out its Marina Vaccination Technical Working Group. So there were a lot of places where the vaccination program started to roll out specifically for seafarers. So these are in AMUSUP, IPF AMUSUP places in Manila. We also have collaborations with the different city governments in Manila, Makati, Las Piñas, and Taguig. In this inoculation programs, the seafarers were the target stakeholder. And then in June, while the vaccination program has been ongoing, we again started re-lobbying over the urgency of increasing the inbound flights or the capacity for Filipino seafarers, because it's been over a year since the pandemic, and a lot of our seafarers were still stuck at sea because they could not come home due to the fact that Philippines would only allow about 400 seafarers to come home at every single day. And the biggest safety issue then was fatigue, because we could not replace our crew. So we had in July, we again had so much campaign wherever. So in that photo, while there was an event going on in Marina, I approached the administrator and the senators who were present to convince them to push for more inbound flight capacity for the Filipino crew. Around August 2021, so that's 8 months, way into the campaign, we already started to report 100% vaccinated crew deployment, which already is an indication of the win that has happened. Then, around the next slide is September. It's still an emphasis on increasing the inbound flight capacity for the Filipino seafarers. So we were I was in the different TV shows, radio program, whoever will accept me, I just took it all because I needed people to understand, not just government, that it is already a safety issue for our seafarer to be allowed to come home. And then finally, in October 2021, I joined the meeting of the IATF, which is the Interagency Task Force of the Philippines. This is the body that decides everything COVID-related. The only body that controls everything from inoculation to movement to lockdowns. This is the sole body, and of course I raise the sentiment. Next slide. So that was about 2021. So easing into, we started to see already in end of 2021 that some ports have started to open, that flights have started to resume, although very expensive flights. But people are now able to come in and go. So we started to shift around October our focus, since we've managed already operationally. We started to shift around October the focus of our campaign, or the push that I was involved in, on the hot topic of the fight against the exploitation of the seafarer compensation system and ambulance chasing in the Philippines. So we've gone through a transition in October, and we've started a campaign, very strong campaigns on it. And we formed an alliance, we have formed an alliance with ITF AMSU, which is a union, to fight this exploitation of the seafarer compensation system. We have also formed an alliance with INEP, the International Maritime Employers Council, which is an organization composed of 250 shipping companies located all over the world. Then also with UFS and Tilid ng Marino, we continue this awareness campaign, and also alliances against this evil, this nefarious nature of this nefarious body that has started to grow in the Philippines. And the next slide. So we have seen also that ICE1, which is another international seafarers welfare body, has also taken on this initiative with AMSU, ITF AMSU. So together we have been in different fora to really push for awareness and campaign of this fight on the impact of the crew claims dilemma and find solution. So this is intensified this year, so about May and also June. And then currently we have started with the new government, with the Marcos government having taken on the Philippine administration. We've started again conversations with the different government officials on the exploitation of the seafarer compensation system and ambulance chasing. Because ultimately, while there are very few people who benefit from this fraud, a lot of our ship owners leave the Philippines and would not want to get crew from us, and it results eventually to loss of livelihood of the Filipino crew. And then we started to participate in September, the Committee on Migrant Workers, the revisions of the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers. And I've seen in that Magna Carta there are also elements which are written in the current draft law that are actually very dangerous because it will intensify this current fraud on the seafarer compensation system. So this is why we are also very strong in our participation in the Senate committees. I think Stella Maris is part of the technical working group in the Senate as well, because I see Father Paulo there at times. Now moving forward, easing out of the pandemic where things have started to normalize. The focus of the industry now is to prevent the exploitation of Filipino seafarer compensation system and ambulance chasing, because it has a critical impact on the seafaring industry. Our Filipino seafarers market share has been reduced to 14.5% for the past 3 years, and it has just resulted to losing jobs for Filipino seafarers. And IMEC has been very emphatic that they have started to explore other crew sources in Africa, as well as and cadetship also in Ukraine, as a response to the Philippines' failure to solve this problem. And this is the reason why we are now pushing the campaign, because this will, if livelihood is gone, seafaring is gone in the Philippines, we have a massive impact on the seafarers themselves. So next slide. So the fight is here currently for us, for a country with a 6.1% inflation rate, with 3 million people unemployed. We in seafaring can contribute more to keep the economy afloat. We are a $6 billion industry in the Philippines, but we need to work on these ills in our seafaring industry in order to be able to ensure that the Filipino seafarers would keep their livelihood. So with that, I end my presentation, and I thank you for your time. I know it's about lunchtime, and maybe a lot of you are still jet lagged. I'm sorry I could not join you because I did not get my visa on time. I still don't have my passport back, but maybe that's confidential. Nonetheless, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. I know that it's late evening for you, so thank you to you for being there and presenting a significant number of different measures and actions that have allowed the seafarers to continue crewing our ships. Otherwise, the fleet would have been stopped, and that would have been chaos for global shipping. So I think it's very relevant that the industry has taken action to allow the fleet to continue serving the worldwide. So now we have another version, another views from Katie, as I have introduced her as regional crew manager at V.ships, and you can see it from here. Perfect.
I was going to say good morning, but it's good afternoon now. But don't worry, I only have about 4 slides. I'm not going to hold you back from your lunch for very long. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm Katie Lee, Regional Crew Management Partner with V.ships. I've been with V.ships for about 2 years now, but as mentioned, I was previously working in the Middle East for 14 years, and prior to that, I was working with another ship manager up based out of Aberdeen. So my background is mostly in the offshore side, but since working with B Group, I've been involved in the cargo sector.
Katie, could you speak slightly more slowly, please?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, I will do that. So yes, I've been in crew management for a long time. I actually love working in crewing. It can be very stressful at times, of course, but because it involves building relationships and it involves solving problems for people. So those are two things that I really enjoy. Next slide, please. Just a brief introduction to V Group. We are a leading ship management and marine services company. We look after over 44,000 seafarers. We have about 133 different nationalities. That pool size actually is equivalent to about a quarter of the global seafaring workforce. So we do look after a lot of crew. We operate out of 60 offices across 30 different countries, so quite a large global footprint. I've included our values on this slide just because I think some of them relate well to seafarer welfare. The top one being that we care. You know, we care about our colleagues, we care about our customers, our company, but we also care about doing a good job, about safety and about the environment. And also about upholding the highest ethical standards in everything that we do. So seafarer welfare is always a big focus for us as an organisation. Next slide. Sorry, can we skip this one? Okay, they're coming now. So I'm glad Iris covered COVID so much in detail during her presentation. My presentation focuses more on kind of the typical sort of impacts on seafarer welfare that we find on board. Starting with the most impactful being connectivity. Having access to internet on board is, the overwhelming majority of our seafarers find that's the most important thing in terms of their well-being. And it's not just internet access, it has to be reliable access, it has to be readily available, because if our seafarers are trying to make a call home and the connection is unstable, or worse, if they have to pay for internet access, these cause a lot of stress and frustration and essentially cancel out any positive impact of having internet in the first place. I know there was always some concern that having Wi-Fi access on board would have a negative impact on some of the other forms of social interaction on board. I think largely that was maybe the older generation of seafarers that felt that way. I think now we all recognise that it's quite commonplace for when we finish work, we want to relax, we want to connect with family, we want to maybe just have a scroll through a news feed, check what's happening on social media. And there's other ways that we can use internet access to drive engagement. We can use it for online gaming or having challenges between different vessels on board. I've found it useful for being able to contact seafarers directly. It used to be if I wanted to check how the third mate was doing, I'd phone and speak to him through the captain. Now, if I know that there's internet access, I can just send him a WhatsApp and check how he's doing, and it's much easier. And for me, I think social interaction on board, it's not just about the activities and the team building events, it's also about making sure that the relationships on board are always positive, because with over 130 nationalities, one of the challenges we have now and again is culture conflict. We have a lot of multinational crews, that seems to be the norm these days. And each crew member comes with his own personal culture, his own national culture, and his own professional culture. So sometimes, they don't blend that well together without some training and helping raise awareness of different communication styles and different cultural norms. Especially when we consider how much we try to encourage greater diversity on board the boats. That's going to be something that we We have to make sure that everybody on board feels comfortable being who they are. They feel valued, respected, and safe from any discrimination or any form of harm. I've included job satisfaction here. This impacts on sense of well-being. We want crew to find their jobs rewarding and enjoyable. We want them to have a sense of job security as well, that's very important, and have visibility on their career paths going forward. We also want to make sure that they have a manageable workload. Looking at process efficiency to try and eliminate any non-value work or try and cut down on some paperwork for them, just to try and make the job slightly easier. We also try and identify where technology can assist and providing them with applications and tools to do their jobs. So this is why training is so critical. Training in the sense of enhancing normal job skills, but also upskilling our crew to keep up to date with technology and environmental trends. I've got a bullet point here for mental and physical well-being. Obviously that covers quite a lot. Things that impact on that can be the working hours on board, the quality of the rest that the crew get, the length of rotations, of course, the quality and the quantity of food they have access to, access to shore leave, and also access to support networks. So that's emotional support, spiritual support, support whenever they need extra help. Language and cultural barriers I mentioned before as well. If we have one sole nationality on board the vessel, that can be quite isolating for them, especially during off time when crew might revert to their national language instead of the working language of English. Also, we mentioned about internet access being a good thing, but if there's pressures from home, that's where regular news from home can actually impact negatively, especially if there's financial anxiety being felt, which can be the case if we have seafarers who are maybe supporting an extended family back home. Iris covered the COVID crisis really well in her presentation, which was great. The other issue, of course, that's not mentioned here are these global events that impact on seafarer welfare. So COVID was certainly one, and now of course we've got Russia-Ukraine conflict as well. So just as we were, getting our rotations stabilised, crew were moving freely again, now we are facing crew shortages once again due to martial law and sanctions. Next slide, please. So this next slide is just talking about what we're doing at V Group to try and address or try and help with well-being on board. Obviously we're trying to make sure that there's internet access available free of charge on as many vessels as possible. And not just connecting through that, we provide a seafarer app as well, which helps us to connect with the seafarers both when they're on board and on shore. It lets them update their availability, they can check their next assignment, they can complete online training, they can view their pay slips. So it's just a way of them staying connected with the company. We run various different engagement initiatives with the vessels, and it could be just with a view, like some of the initiatives might be just to improve recreational facilities on board. Things like sports and gym equipment, karaoke machines, they are very hugely popular on board the vessels. And then other things like just making sure we've got quality catering on board, and the budget covers things like social occasions and festive celebrations, and then providing mental health support through our employee assistance program or through our collaboration with Stella and other organisations where we can get a personal touch on board the vessels. It's not just done through apps. You can use your huge network to provide assistance to the crew while they're in ports. So a lot of training goes on as well to raise awareness of mental health on board, so that crew recognise symptoms, they know how to report it, they know what to do. It's the same about cultural awareness. If they're struggling, with communication with I'm thinking of one particular case, you know, where we had Brazilian and Russian crew. We had huge cultural differences there. It's just mostly their communication styles are so different. So it's raising awareness and helping people understand how they need to adjust communication. Also in things like bullying and harassment, making sure the crew recognise when there's negative behaviour going on, and making the difference between what's offensive and just a joke. You know, there's a fine line, and then they need to know how to report it as well. One thing we did when in response to the Ukraine crisis, this RRR program, it basically means relieve, rest and rejoin. Because Ukrainian males under 65 were restricted from leaving Ukraine, and also it wasn't a safe place for us to send our crew back to, we identified a number of hotels in safe neighbouring countries, so Poland, Moldova, Romania, Turkey, and offered those to our seafarers for them to spend their leave period. And the ship owners, we got agreement from them to pay for 4 to 6 weeks. If the crew wanted to stay longer, they could, but that was enough for them to have some restful period. They brought their families to join them. It was somewhere safe for them to stay. It also meant we could continue their rotations and continue giving them ongoing work. So that's been very successful. We've had nearly 80 crew participate so far. So that's been good. Excuse me. And one other thing is working with ship money. We're providing e-wallet solutions now so that the crew can receive their wages on e-wallets, and you know, it's like a bank card. They can spend their money through that medium as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, as I mentioned, you know, our collaboration with Stella is very important. Our Chief Commercial Officer, James Muir, he's now on the board of trustees. You know, we're very proud to be, you know, partnering with such a large organisation, such a trusted and well-respected name among all our seafarers. I see the value going forward, not only in helping us provide counselling to our crew, but also, you know, helping us to design our welfare strategies. You know, you receive so much more input and maybe contact with the seafarers, so that's great feedback for us to receive. Yeah, I'm just thinking, because also, you know, we had one case recently, one of our chief engineers unfortunately passed away on board the vessel. And the vessel was 17 days away from port. I'm not sure how close she is now, but that's got to have quite a significant impact on the crew. So it's that sort of spiritual support and emotional support that becomes very critical in those situations. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.